You know, there's a saying you definitely heard before of we have it down to a science, referring to some skill or objective you're trying to reach that you have down to a process that gives you the same result every single time or a quality result every single time. And that really got me thinking, are fighting games a science? It's one of those silly thoughts that you have in the shower or like late at night when you're trying to fall asleep. But I think this one might have some weight to it. I mean, we do call training mode the lab after all, and we take set little data points into that lab to try and make some repeatable process that we can use every time the situation occurs. It starts very simply with, hey, I blocked Zangief's sweep. What can I do? I had a theory, I had a hypothesis, I went into the lab, I tested it, and I found my solution. But just because it follows a scientific method doesn't mean it's completely a science. Let's revisit that same situation, but this time Zangief has a full bar of V-trigger. So I walk up, I sweep, I get punished as usual. I walk up, I sweep again, I cancel the V-trigger. That makes it safe. And so now our original solution doesn't even work anymore, right? We've got a whole nother variable to worry about with V-trigger after the sweep. But there's even a deeper level to it. There's one thing that you might not have thought of at all. So far, we've determined if he walks up and sweeps and he doesn't cancel into V-trigger or he doesn't have V-trigger, we're going to punish him. If he walks up, sweeps, and he has V-trigger, 99% of the time he's going to cancel into it. But what about that 1%? What about he walks up, he sweeps, and he does absolutely nothing, but we don't swing either because we assumed he was going to cancel into V-trigger? You can say that that will never happen, but you can't deny the fact that it's possible, that it could happen. It's situations like this that will make you realize you can learn these games like a science. You should. I encourage you to do so. You have a theory, test it in the lab, figure out your solution. But you can't play them like a science because there's too many variables. There's too many things that can happen and will happen. There's not one repeatable process that will beat every single player. You can break down every situation into a process, like if he sweeps and he doesn't have V-trigger. I know how to beat that every single time, but I can't have a process that is just fighting games. I can't write on a piece of paper fighting game process, fighting game hypothesis. This is the process on how to win every single time. It's not possible. It won't happen. So stop trying to play like that. And I can't even blame you or blame myself for trying to play like that because we want the path of least resistance. We want something that can work every single time. And we want something that we can think about when we load into every single game, which to some degree you will. You will have a game plan when you load into the game, but you can't be so set in that game plan to the point where it's not flexible, where it won't move and it won't adjust to how people play. It's just setting yourself up for failure if you don't have that flexibility in your mind. Don't get me wrong, there's some very good players who play completely with their mind. They play like the game is a science, but they don't always make it to the highest level of gameplay because they lose to just the most random things. When you introduce a level of uncertainty, when you introduce a wildness to a player who is completely brain-based, somebody who knows every single situation down to the T, they know every number behind it. When you introduce a wildness or an uncomfortable situation, they collapse because they don't know what to do. If you press on their +3 and you hit them, it's like a stun grenade went off. They don't know what to do. There just has to be a balance. You know, you can't be completely reactionary or completely brain-based or completely feel-based, right? You can't always be wild. Somebody will shut you down. You can't always just be sitting waiting to whip punish. Somebody will run at you and you won't be ready to react. And you can't just sit and be calculating how everything is going based on numbers because it just doesn't always play out the way you want it to. That's kind of what I've been learning lately is I've always strived to find one specific play style that's super effective, but it just, you can't do it like that. You know, you have to be constantly adapting and changing based on how the opponent is playing. You know, you don't realize that when you first start. It's mostly about you when you start. You want to do your little combos and you want to do your little hit confirms and whip punishes. But as you start to get higher and higher, you realize the game is all about the opponent. You know, you don't really matter in a sense. You know, it matters what they're doing and how you react to what they're doing. That's all I got for you. I'm kind of just getting back to talking about things that I'm learning at the time. Recently, I don't know, I've been feeling kind of lost as to what videos I want to make. So I'm just going back to what worked and what has worked in the past. I don't know if it's going to get views. I don't know if it's going to get subs or if people are even going to like this. But it's something I wanted to make. So I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, I hope you will consider subscribing. And thanks so much for watching.